Welcome to the Original Gangsters podcast. I'm your host, Scott Burnstein. Quick hitter edition, breaking news, kind of a clash of worlds between the Mafia, cold case homicides, and the Sopranos. So if you get a copy of Rolling Stone magazine, December 2024 edition, they have a great investigative piece on an unsolved murder that has where the victim has finally been identified. It was just identified literally in the last couple months. Her name was Patricia McGlone. She disappeared in the summer of 1969, and it appears, even though he's been dead for 2 years, Paulie Walnuts, aka Tony Sirico of The Sopranos and also of the Colombo crime family, is considered a suspect in the McGlone homicide. And this is the second murder of a woman that we know. We're not saying that he's guilty or that he did it, but this is the second potentially mob affiliated slaying that the FBI and local authorities in Los Angeles and New York think that Tony Sirico, before he became an actor, was involved with. The first was Krista Hyde, who was a aspiring Hollywood starlet, actress, singer, who was big in kind of glitzy high society and dated a lot of entertainers, actors, politicians, and mobsters. And she was brutally stabbed to death in 1977. Sirico actually had already become an actor at that point, but didn't really get a lot of traction until later on. He was a suspect in that. I'll get into that in 1 second. But now this is brand new, and NYPD and FBI have been trying to identify the remains of Patricia McGlone for 2 decades. Disappeared in 1969. She was 16 going on 17. She lived above and frequented a very iconic nightclub called The Scene, which was in Hell's Kitchen. Steve Paul's The Scene. And it was a favorite performance venue for Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd and Fleetwood Mac and The Doors. The Doors were the house band there in the summer of 1967. And Patricia McGlone spent a lot of time there, even though she was underage. She lived with a man above the club. And then she vanished. In 2003, they were turning the property that had once housed The Scene, which I'm guessing not so coincidentally shut down in the weeks after McGlone disappeared, and people were asking questions. In 2003, they were turning that piece of property into a hotel, and when they were deconstructing it, they found Patricia McGlone's remains in the wall. A slab of concrete was smashed by a sledgehammer by one of the construction guys, and a skull fell out. It took them 21 years to identify the body. In the last couple months, it's been identified as McGlone. NYPD and FBI cite 3 suspects right now in the homicide. 2 are dead. One is her husband or common law husband, or she married an older guy. It looks like it might not have been a legal marriage. He's gone, I believe. Her stepbrother, who's alive, is one of the other suspects. And then Tony Sirico is the 3rd suspect. As I said earlier, back in the 1960s and early 70s, and really until he, even into his stardom on The Sopranos, he was considered an associate of the Colombo crime family, was close with the Clemenzas, Jimmy Brown Clemenza, Jerry Green Eyes Clemenza, close to I just say close, connected to the Persicos. And in the summer of 1969, Tony Sirico was a up-and-coming gangster before he went to prison, turned his life around, and became an actor, was extorting or trying to extort Steve Paul, who owned the Scene. Steve Paul would end up starting his own record label called Blue Sky, and would have success, I think, as an agent as well. Back then, he was a club owner who actually had a background in working for Mafia-affiliated clubs, had worked for some of the Genovese mobs clubs back in the 60s, the Peppermint Lounge. And he was Sirico was trying to cut into him and was applying a lot of pressure and was hanging out at the club a lot and causing a ruckus. So around the same time, McGlone disappears. Sirico, shortly thereafter, gets sent to prison, does his bid in state prison, I believe for robbery and assault, and then goes out to LA and becomes a actor. But the McGlone homicide, again, Sirico's been dead since 2022. We'll never be able to, arrest him for this, just like they never arrested him for Krista Hyde. But it's interesting. This is, when life imitates art or art imitates life, vice versa. So Paulie Walnuts wasn't just a pretend gangster. This guy was a true blue wise guy, just like a lot of characters on The Sopranos were actual actors that had once been wise guys or were currently wise guys. Alley Boy Baris and Larry Boy were both guys that were affiliated, and Alley Boy had to leave the show because he got arrested, had to go to jail. And then Tony Darrow, who played Larry Boy, and had been in The Sopranos and other things, he was is connected to the patriarchal crime family in Boston. But just to give a quick synopsis on Krista Hyde and connect Sirico and what we know and what we don't know about that. Krista Hyde was from Milwaukee. She ended up in New York, made a lot of connections in New York, then went to LA. This is somebody that was with a lot of guys and girls. She was bisexual, and she was with guys, Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty, those type of actors. And then she was also like the side piece for the Shah of Iran. It's another tie to The Sopranos. They used to make fun of Frank Vincent's character, Phil Leotardo, and said he looked like the Shah of Iran. He did. The Shah of Iran, when he come to the United States, Krista Hyde would be his girlfriend for the trip. And Krista Hyde was also in a relationship. I shouldn't say in a relationship, had sexual relations with a lot of organized crime figures, including the Persico brothers. And she was also somebody that kept videotapes and audio tapes and a written log of all the people that she slept with. And there are a lot of different theories about what happened to her and why it happened to her. What we seem to know for sure is in the minutes or hours after she was stabbed to death on her front lawn in West Hollywood, that Tony Sirico went into her apartment. They found his fingerprints. Well, he was in the apartment at some point, either before or after. A lot of people theorize that he didn't necessarily kill her, but was a conspirator and went into the apartment to kind of rob her afterwards, but particularly grab those tapes and books, logs of possibly blackmail material for the Persicos, both Junior and Alley Boy Persico. So his fingerprints were at the scene. Because of the nature of the murder, she was stabbed like 25, 30 times. That's not really a mob hit. It looks like more of a crime of passion. either way, it looks like Sirico and the Colombos were made aware that she had been murdered, and somebody had to get in her apartment and grab the materials. So he was a suspect in that. They actually did a Dateline NBC about it when he was. They reopened the case when he became Paulie Walnuts, and the Sopranos became the #1 show on television. Always denied any responsibility. Was questioned in. I take it back. Was never questioned in McGlone because she wasn't identified until he died. His brother, who's a priest, was interviewed, and he says he never heard anything about this, and it doesn't really fit Tony's his MO. Another thing that's interesting is when Tony Sirico was another Soprano link or kind of like a dovetailing. When Tony Sirico was a gangster before he was Paulie Walnuts, his nickname was Junior, and they called him Junior Sirico. So it's I guess appropriate that the hit show that he rides to stardom, the co-stars Junior, or the character, the kind of secondary mob character is Junior Soprano. So I just thought that'd be interesting to let everybody know. I'll keep you updated if we find anything out about the McGlone homicide. They're never gonna solve the Krista Hyde homicide. But Paulie Walnuts, more than just a TV gangster, he was gangster to the core in his real life. Hope you guys enjoyed this. And again, keep checking back in with us. We're always on top of breaking news in gangland circles around North America. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let everybody know what's going on here at OG. Hit up our Patreon members only when you want some kind of more satirical analysis. I'm doing a travel blog over there. We're also doing some Buffalo stuff. So check that out. We're gonna have some exclusive interviews and some exclusive Q&As coming up. So please check it out. Original Gangsters podcast, uncovering the underworld, one city, one region, one country at a time. I'm Scott Burnstein. I'm out.